Or there's times where I feel like that and I'm like, okay, well, what else can I do that's productive? And sometimes it's music related, but it won't be necessarily production. I'm like, okay, like I could organize samples, or I could, sound design, or I could make content, social media stuff, or
Hey guys, welcome to the Industry Set podcast, where we interview high caliber artists and discuss all things music marketing, branding, networking, creating opportunities for yourself, production, productivity hacks, management, creative process, and much, much more. And so if you are a music producer and you're looking to level up in all those areas, then be sure to hit subscribe on our YouTube channel below so you don't miss out on future episodes. And also it helps out a lot on the channel with us working with bigger and better guests for these podcasts. And in today's episode, we interviewed BAINBRIDGE, and I've been following him for a couple of years now. He's had some spectacular releases on Disciple over the last couple of years, and he continues to kill it. In this podcast, we covered a lot of different topics ranging from creative process, creative outlet, the purpose behind why we do what we do, challenges that he faced during COVID, as well as his origin story and a bunch of other things that he had going on around that time. That being said, this is like a really informative podcast, a lot about like mindset and purpose and drive, and I think a lot of people are going to resonate with what we had to talk about. That being said, let's get into it.
Cool. So how did you originally get your start in music production, like way back?
it's always these like tough questions. Way back. So I went to my first electronic show. That's really when it clicked for me. It kind of was just like a lightning bolt. That's what I always say. It's like a lightning bolt that came out of the sky. Is how it felt, kind of like an epiphany. I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, kind of thing. And then it was a lot of just Google stuff, like just Googling how do they make this kind of music, and then I kind of discovered the programs, and I was in college, and my buddy kind of messed around with Logic, and he was making some stuff, and then I realized I had an old copy of FL Studio on my laptop, and he was like, yeah, we should bust it open, let's start messing around with stuff. And I kind of just went from there. I did end up going to music school, but it was more of like a traditional music school. So it was more like, here's how you record a mic, a drum set, record, a vocalist or a band, and kind of like general, like a mixing engineer, and more of the traditional term. And that helped with some stuff, but majority of it was definitely like self-taught, and then through peers, kind of like sharing, oh, hey, I figured out you can do this and do that. And then lots of YouTube. That was kind of like how it got going.
Right. So YouTube University, obviously. And so going back to you.
A lot.
Yeah. And so going back, you were saying that you saw a show and that's what basically like got you into it. But was it like what specific artist was it that you were saying? You can remember.
The first show that I saw was Datsik.
Oh, okay. Oh no. Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, I tend to leave that out. But
yeah. Understandable.
It was him and Delta Heavy, I think, and it might have been Aphex Twin as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, it was stacked.
And so were you already like kind of acquainted with like electronic dance music before that period, or was it kind of like you just went to the show and you like didn't know what you were expecting?
A little bit. So when I was a kid, when I was probably like maybe like 14-ish, a friend of mine, his older brother, ran like a huge dubstep blog on Tumblr, and he would share some stuff with us. So he would send us music to listen to when we smoked.
Yeah,
like 14, 15, listening to dubstep. It was like a crazy thing.
Yeah.
So I was kind of familiar with it through that, and just kind of finding stuff, Googling or YouTubing the songs that he had sent us, and then going through like the related stuff. But I was a big metalhead for the most part. But then when I moved to Denver, I was like, well, I've never been to a show out here. What's the venues like? What's going on? And I just Googled like a show, and that's what came up. And I was like, oh shit, like I got to go see this. This is going to be crazy. And then that was it. I went to that was my first electronic show. And that's kind of when it clicked for me.
Yeah. And so you're saying how that's when it first clicked with you. And so was that the first thing in your life at that point that like truly made sense to you? Or did you have some other kind of passions at the time as well?
I did have another passion. So my other passion was racing. So I did like dirt track,
Oh, okay.
like flat carts.
Yeah.
And I was moving up into sprints. I was like becoming of the age where I could do sprints. Um, and we were traveling states at the time, and I was racing like every weekend. I did it for like 7 years. We had sponsors and
Oh, right. So you were
trailers,
doing
the
it
whole
pretty
like
professionally then. Yeah.
yeah, as a kid, yeah. I mean that's what we did every weekend. We traveled probably from man April, May-ish through like October. Every weekend we were gone racing. So
Was
I
this
would have
like a
loved it
kind of a
again.
family thing? Like, was this like something you did in your family? Yeah.
Yeah, so my stepdad grew up kind of around the racetrack sort of thing, and then I think he thought it would be fun. He's a mechanic, or he was at the time. So I think he thought it would be fun for us, something to do as a family, is to get into that, and then it just got more and more serious every year.
Yeah, right. And what was
So
your family's perspective on how you like, change your trajectory from that to more so like music? Did they understand it, or were they just like, what the hell are you doing?
well, I'd always been into music, so I did. My mom always jokes. She said that I was like when I was like 4 or 5, I would have my friends come over and I would put on like a stereo and I would stand up on my dresser and like perform, and I'd make them sit on my bed and watch. My
Sick.
mom was like, I knew from then that you would maybe do something performance wise.
Yeah, sick.
But I got into band when I was in middle school. That was like my first like real introduction to like playing an instrument. And after a couple of years of that, I picked up guitar, and I had played in a metal band in high school.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this week's podcast. If you are a music producer and you're looking to level up in your music marketing, your branding, your networking, creating opportunities for yourself, your production, your mixing and mastering, your sound design, your overall quality, quantity, all you gotta do is click the link in our description. It'll take you to our website where you can sign up for some free training, some cool videos in terms of how to level up, in terms of getting you label ready, and also how to get you tour ready. And so you can also book in a call with myself, one of the other student advisors, and from there we can get a little bit more clear and specific about your situation and whether we can help you or not. We might not be able to, but the only way to find out is actually have a conversation about it. That being said, let's get back into the podcast.
I had played in a metal band in high school, and our drummer went on to be, for a brief period of time, I think for like a year or two, he was with a metal band called Reflections. Which they ended up becoming pretty big. So he was like on tour with Bale Maya like my senior year and stuff.
Yeah, right.
But so I was doing guitar and metal stuff, and then the electronic stuff was just something I'd kind of familiar with, but it was more like when we smoked, it was just what we listened to.
Yeah.
So I was kind of around music and always had music on and was interested in it. But then our band kind of fell apart, and then I ended up moving. I went to that show, and that's when I was like, like I could do this on my own. This is kind of like a one-man band kind of thing. So
And I can see how, that the whole pursuing the thing by yourself could be quite attractive, considering, in a band format, you're kind of dependent on the success of each person individually, as opposed to just yourself. Like you can't just be the only one pushing, like every single person has to be pushing hard, right? Yeah.
yeah, we all had to be kind of on the same page. And we had changes in vocalists and like guitarists and drummers, and yeah, so
Yeah, right.
it was easier, I guess, to kind of take it because it's all on you, right?
Mm.
It's like all the learning, all of the time spent, the songs made, it's all like your own thing. So it's like you don't have to rely, quote unquote, I guess, on anybody. It's kind of something you can do on your own, which is cool.
Yeah, I've always resonated with the whole music production thing because like I'm somebody who like needs control to kind of like feel safe. So like, and the perfectionism thing as well, because it's like if I try to be absolutely the best I can be at a certain thing, I feel like I've got that sense of control in terms of what I'm doing, and that's why I like how I have that autonomy of being like I can write when I want to. I don't have to wait for somebody else to kind of like do it with me or anything. So I understand that.
Yeah.
So
it was like the freedom too. So you'd have to
yeah,
rely, there was no like timing for like, oh, band practice and somebody's busy or this and that. I think that's kind of like music production or like electronic, I guess, or making beats, and then being like a vocalist, kind of like pop stuff, or a rapper. I think that's kind of where you have the most kind of creative control and freedom, and it's all sort of on your schedule, which is the beauty of it.
yeah, totally. And so walk me through, with the whole origin thing, because at this point now you've been producing for a little bit, you're going all in on it. How many years into it until things are starting to click a little bit more and you're like, this could actually be like a full-time thing?
So I think when man, I think I was 17 or 18 when I went to that show. And then, I went the more traditional route of going to college and, parents and got to go get a degree and do something. And then I went undeclared because I didn't know what I wanted to do. My parents had been kind of in business sales, like finance stuff. And then I was like, okay, maybe that would be interesting. And I took like one business class and I think I dropped it after the first week. And I was like, okay, maybe not. And I was skipping class the whole time I was in school. I mean, a lot of the time was spent it was in Fort Collins, Colorado, because I did a semester at Colorado State. There was a 24-hour internet cafe and a hookah bar below it. And so I would skip class and I'd sit in the hookah bar till like 2, 3 a.m. with my laptop. And then when that would close, then I'd go up to the internet cafe till like 6 and sit there and just like write music.
Yeah, sick.
So I was doing that. And then one thing led to another. I changed colleges. I did a semester at like the local community college there. It was called Front Range. And once again, skipping class, terrible grades, like writing music, partying. Then that ended. And I was like, I really want to do like music stuff, but I was trying to figure it out. And I wanted to go to Dubspot, but there was no way I could afford that at the time. And I had found something called Recording Radio Film Connection. And it was kind of like it was like a paid, like you pay for an internship. And they had a bunch of different, instructors throughout the United States that would they were a part of that program or curriculum that would teach it. And so I did like 6 months and I interned at this recording studio in Denver. Didn't learn a lot, but it was interesting. And then I kind of was just doing nothing out there and sort of just stuck. And my mom and stepdad were like, you should move home and go to music school back home, because my dad, his longtime friend, worked at this media college, which is now closed. They permanently shut their doors probably like, oh man, 5, 6 years ago. But they were the old studios of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. So like Janet Jackson's recorded there. I think they had like Usher, maybe some other people. They're beautiful world-class studios. And so they had turned it into a music school, as well as they taught like animation and game design and things like that. And so I moved home and then ended up attending school there. And then when I was about 6 months out from graduation, it sort of hit me. I was like, dude, if I don't put 150% effort into this, I'm just going to be like some guy with a degree from this school, just working, serving is what I was doing at the time, just kind of stuck with no sort of qualifications for a career or anything like that. If I don't get really serious about this, I'm just going to be stuck. And that's kind of when it clicked. And I started going all in and recording how many hours a week I spent on music and really spending all of my free time on that. And then when I graduated, it took about 2-ish years to really understand and kind of learn a lot and get to the point where I was, doing my own sound design and sort of understood, structure of dance music and where it started to click and it became almost second nature. And then COVID hit, and then now here we are out of COVID.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it sounds like you were saying just before about how that circumstance you were in, where you didn't want to end up doing that thing, like that obviously pushed you a lot to just go all in, right?
Yeah, I mean that scared me.
Yeah,
because I was like, I'm just going to be stuck working at being a server. I was serving at Applebee's at the time.
yeah,
I think. Yeah, I was just or I was doing catering. I did wedding catering serving for a while, and then I moved over doing serving at Applebee's. But yeah, it just kind of was like I'm stuck. I'm making $15 an hour, and just that was not the life that I had envisioned.
yeah.
So
That kind of
if I don't
stuff.
start taking it seriously, I'll be stuck.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is like very powerful, like an away from motivator like that. Like mine was quite similar. I was working at Coles. I think you guys have that in the States as well, from here in Australia.
Kohl's.
COLES.
Oh no, it's
Like a foods.
KOHLS.
Oh, what?
Well, our Kohl's is like a more of a department store. It's kind of like a Macy's, like JC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, ours is like a food store.
Okay.
But yeah, I was working there like stacking shelves, and then I had this realization that I'm getting paid by the hour, not by my effort. So like
Hmm.
hypothetically, I could do it just like any job. I could do a whole day's worth of work in an hour, but I'm still only paid for just that hour. So like it doesn't matter how good I am at the job or how bad I am. Like I'm just there for my time. While I would go home and write music for like 6, 7 hours, and that would get me closer to whatever XYZ goal I have. So like my effort was meaningful. So like
Hmm.
I went all in music on that basis because it was like I don't want to be stuck in a dead end job where my purpose is like just because I'm there for my time, it's not for my effort, right? So
Right.
I can resonate with that for sure.
Yeah,
So
dead end job was the biggest fear.
yeah, yeah, you don't want to get stuck in that shit. Nobody does. Yeah.
No.
So you're saying as well, like about COVID. So how did that impact you in your situation?
COVID really screwed me. So I had spent a year writing the Genesis EP that came out on Roundtable. And I had spent a year like designing my whole brand and finally had like an idea and a vision for it. It wasn't just a name anymore. I kind of figured out the backstory, where what I wanted it to look like. And I spent like a year with the graphic designer and writing the music. And then Immortals, which is kind of like my breakthrough hit that came out on Knights of the Roundtable Volume 3 in November 2019. And then the Genesis EP was January of 2020. And Genesis and Immortals, those two songs were kind of like the ones that people Excision was playing, and like Calcium, and they're getting a lot of support. Um, and then it felt like the wave was like starting for me, like the first wave of my career. And then it was 2 months later, COVID shut everything down.
Mm,
So I was finally starting to travel and play shows. I'd played a couple. I think I played in Montreal in January 2020. I think I played in Des Moines, Iowa in February. And then I think March I played in Fort Myers, Florida. And I remember when I got to Florida, I was turned on the TV and they were like talking about shutting down domestic travel, and it was all over after
mm,
that. So it really sucked because I felt like I put this whole year's worth of effort, both like mentally of designing the brand and then boots on the ground writing the music and getting this whole thing into a solid product and package finally, just for the universe to just say screw you.
yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
And so walk me through just before, because you were mentioning about Disciple and when you first started signing with them, was there any kind of big break before that happened that kind of led to that?
No, not really. I mean, it was the first like Excision played Immortals and Genesis at EDC in 2019. That was May. And that was like the first time I think I'd ever gotten major artist support.
Oh, really? So
Yeah. And so
and
that was
that was after you'd signed with Disciple. So not even before
no, it
that,
was
you weren't
no, it
getting
was
any.
before. It was before.
Oh, okay.
It was like 6 months before Immortals came out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
So that was like the first one. And then I think Calcium started playing this stuff after that. And so I started to see more artist support. And then that's kind of when Disciple stuff, all that stuff ended up happening.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's a funny thing about hype. It's like it's almost as if it's the saying I have that it's not how good you are, but it's how good people think you are in a short amount of time. And so like when you start getting, you know what I mean? So it's like when you start getting like bulk artist support and like label releases all in like a short time frame, everyone's like, who's this person? Where's he come from? But
Yep.
it's like I've
Yep.
been around for like it's like you've been producing for XYZ. It's like I haven't really changed that much in that time frame, but it's just because all the shit's happening at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really that. It's like the blow up. It's like that's kind of the blow up, the wave sort of thing, where it's like
yeah.
there's no real. I really don't think like one hit wonder is like a thing. Sort of like, yeah,
Mhm.
they might be a one hit wonder, but it was like for them that nobody sees the years and the
For
work that
sure.
go in until they got that hit that came out.
Yeah, totally. So,
So
with your production as well, I'm curious, like, what was the main hurdle that you had in terms of like getting to a point where you were comfortable in where you developed your sound? Like, let's say just before you started like getting to the point with Immortals, let's say.
mm, like the main struggles of the
Yeah,
production.
yeah. You know, some people it's like mix and master, some people it's sound design, or some people
It
it's
was it
like,
was definitely
yeah,
sound design. Yeah, it
yeah,
was definitely sound design. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Because I had to learn, learning Serum from scratch, man, was that intimidating,
Mm,
looking at that and like being, what does each one of these knobs do, sort of thing. I had no idea. That took a long time.
mm,
That took probably a good solid year for me to pretty have a decent grasp of it.
Hmm.
Things branched out from there. Then, I learned more serum, more tricks, more this, more that, more, resampling and things like that. But
Yeah.
definitely sound design was the biggest thing.
But in terms of how you tackled that, if you were able to redo that entire learning experience, would you have done it differently?
I probably would have done more lessons, I think, with producers that offered it at the time. I just didn't know who did. So instead of sitting on YouTube for hours and kind of having, tutorials that were, you learned a little bit, but it wasn't like
Specific to your
exactly.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think everything on YouTube can be pretty broad.
Mm.
Or a lot of the tutorials sound like the other tutorials, and they're like 70% of the way there, but it's not. I would say it's a little like some of the sounds are pretty generic versus like really honing in on making unique individual sounds. I don't feel like YouTube really helped me that much with that. It was more a ton of experimentation. I
Yeah.
think I would have spending more time experimenting and probably taking more one-on-one lessons from producers.
Yeah. There's a saying that I have that, anybody can get really good because of the endless amount of, resources that are available now. But I believe the one thing that really defines us is our taste. Cause like
Yeah.
that's the one thing that's different, right? Cause like, let's say hypothetically, me and you were both at the same skill level, right? And we both invested the same amount of hours, but the end result would be drastically different because our tastes are actually what changes the outcome, right? So it's like we could be hypothetically the same skill level, but the like audiences that would be attracted to either person would be subjective because it's based on the taste, right? So it's like
Mhm.
your quality is subjective on the taste. So how do you feel like you've developed your taste over the years?
I guess what are we defining taste as?
Like I guess your unique sound, right? Because that's really what comes from your taste.
What's crazy to me is people say I've heard it that I have a unique sound, but I still don't feel like I do. Like I'm
I mean,
still
it's
always
it's
pushing.
your preference, right? Like it's like the sounds that you pick and you select. Like that's your preference, right? That's your taste. I mean, do you feel like it's like your
It's tough.
background? And yeah, I know it's tough. It's fucking tough, right? But it's not an easy question. It's very deep. But would you say maybe it's like your background and like in like bands and stuff like that has somewhat influenced like how you approach things, or
The metal stuff definitely. I've always liked the sound of fullness and complexity.
yeah,
My brain when I write music is always like it needs more, like more layers, more this, more that, to the point where it's like it's really strange. I have like a point in production where like I'm like headphones on and I'm kind of like zoned out, and I'm like I hit the point where I'm like I know there's enough where it just kind of reaches this level, and I'm like okay, that's it. Like it has enough atmosphere, backgrounds, the sound design, layering, the drums, everything just like hits this certain like sonic point for me, and then I move kind of on to the next one. But definitely complexity and fullness, as well as like the shine, I think. And I really appreciated like metal that incorporated. I always liked like the electronic style breakdowns where they'd have the really cool synths and like the choirs and the atmosphere behind with like like a filtered like guitar chugging, like
Hmm.
that type of stuff. Um, and a lot of the metal, some of it it's pretty like ethereal, I guess is the way I would
Hmm.
describe it. Um,
My favorite band that kind of encapsulates what you just said is Sleep Token because I like how they have like melodic kind of EDM kind of influences and
mhm.
like, are you familiar with them?
Yeah,
Yeah, sick. Yeah, I'm late to the game discovering them, but yeah, fucking love their shit.
I was
Um,
more of like a Parkway Drive
oh, okay,
and
yeah, yeah. I like Parkway
yeah,
Drive, but
those.
sometimes I can't like decipher what they're saying because I'm not really good at picking up like full screamo stuff. Like I like to have
It's a
bit of pop
skill,
stuff
and
in between.
still,
Yeah, yeah. Like
yeah, it definitely.
if you gave me the lyrics on paper, I'd like, yeah, no worries. But yeah.
The more you listen to it, the more you can
Yeah.
like pick it out. But even
Yeah.
sometimes me, it's still hard for me. But
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So I mean, if you could be remembered, this is a bit of a deep question as well, but if you could be remembered for one thing as a musician, what would it be?
hmm,
Like, is it the performance side? Is it like the music that you've made, or like the impact you've made on people or something? Or
Yeah, probably the impact I made on people, I think
yeah,
would be the
yeah,
biggest thing.
yeah.
Yeah, it was an escape for me. That's how I got into it.
Mm,
I felt welcomed and going to all the metal shows and stuff, and I definitely, fit in, but there was something different like when I went to electronic music show. It was my first show, and I remember all the people were freaking out like, this is your first show, you've never been here, and they were so warm and welcoming, like,
mm.
try this candy on and try these cool glasses and like come meet my friends and this and that. I felt very accepted. And I wanted to give that same feeling that I had back through my music. When I started doing this,
Mm.
that was kind of, that's still the goal, is just to give the same escape. I felt so free. Like a bunch of weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was there and I wasn't worried about any, bills or, struggles, problems in life. It was just kind of like my escape.
Yeah,
And I love that feeling. So
I totally resonate with that for sure. That's the same thing for me as well. It's like that connection, that impact of like receiving that energy, when you've been to a show and then wanting to kind of give it back and be on the other side of that. And having such a impactful way on people, like especially like not only just like, emotionally, but in so many other ways as well. So yeah, totally can resonate with that. So what's kind of like your like ongoing motivation now? Would you say it's that it's like just the whole essence of like impacting people?
yeah, probably. It's also like it's just I've put everything into this, and I'm
Mm.
kind of like, there's no turning back now.
Mm.
Because I'm 28 now, 28 and a half. So it's like I'm kind of locked in. This is like I have picked my career and chose my poison, and there's a point of no return where I'm kind of like,
Mm.
well, yeah, I mean, I can always go and get some job and do something, but this is definitely my passion, and that just keeps me going. It's
Yeah, for
just
sure.
music's been there, no, the good times, the bad times, when you're with people or alone. It's like that's the one thing it felt like in my life has stood the test of time, where it's always there no matter what. And
Yeah.
it's a positive thing. It's like something you
Mm.
can put your time into positively, just like the gym or something like that.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that, and I feel like even if somebody did take a hiatus from music and they went to do something else, I feel like the creative outlet of music just doesn't, like, nothing compares to that. Like, it's something that, because I had a hiatus for like 2 years, and when I was building Defire, and during that period where I wasn't writing any music, I had this like hole in me the whole time of just not being able to fill it. It was like internal validation. And it's like not being able to fulfill that internal validation, you start trying to look externally for it in just kind of like bad ways, like trying to get likes on Facebook or some shit to kind of fulfill that, self-worth kind of thing. But, music, I think it's an incredibly healthy internal validation thing, because we all need validation what we're doing to know that,
Yep.
What we're doing is good, and we're like, doing the good things. So I think it's an incredibly healthy kind of thing. Like some people, like I'm guilty of this as well. Like I would go through a period where I'd just be nonstop playing video games as that kind of external validation, which we all do, to an extent.
Oh
But
yeah, I had to
yeah,
stop doing
yeah,
that, man.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
bad. That
yeah,
was like six
yeah,
hours a day. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I stopped doing that.
It's kind of I was doing a video about this the other day actually, because it's like when you're playing video games, it completely blocks out all your thought process. So it's like it's just like a complete distraction, right? It's like you're playing it and it feels fucking sick, but then like you've kind of just put all the other responsibilities or shit you had to do to a side, just to
Yep,
come like
yep.
a temporary band-aid basically. But yeah,
Yeah, that's what I realized it was. It was like a
yeah,
coping mechanism for all the
yeah,
problems that I had
exactly.
had. It was just me running away from it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then you come out of the stupor, you come out of 6 hours of gaming, and you're like, then you feel even worse because you're like,
Yeah, because you haven't
well,
done
I
shit.
just
Yeah,
wasted that. Yeah, you're like, I
yeah,
could
yeah,
have done this or that and fixed the problems that I'm running
yeah.
away from.
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I only had that epiphany just a week ago actually. So now that I've cut it
Mine
out, it's
was about
been
6 months, probably,
okay.
maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Are you completely like cold turkey off it now, or do you still go back
I
every now
do
and
play.
then?
I play a little bit. I have been
Yeah,
playing. I've picked it up in the past, probably like 6 weeks, but I don't
yeah.
play it as anywhere
As
near as
much.
much.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Yeah,
huge
so
difference.
maybe I'll hop on and play like couple games of League of Legends and
Yeah.
two,
Oh yeah,
three
that's
games,
healthy.
maybe an
Yeah,
hour and a half, two, and I'm done.
yeah,
It's not. I was a
that's
huge Escape
healthy.
from Tarkov player, so that was like
Oh
6 hour.
yeah.
Oh yeah, man, I
Yeah.
was deep in that, especially during COVID. Man, there was a
Yeah.
period of time I think I played like 14 hours a day for 2 weeks straight.
Yeah. I
That was
remember
bad.
during COVID, I actually had gotten COVID and I made the mistake of buying what is it? What's that? Not Dark Souls, Elden Ring. So I bought Elden Ring and I never played a Dark Souls game before and I just gotten COVID. And so I was incapable of doing anything for like 2 weeks. And so I played that game for like 200 hours. And after that, I was like, why should I even write music when I just play Elden Ring and just get that
Yeah,
same need met, you know? So it's like it's kind of disturbing when you look at it in that perspective, you know? It's like something like because I was always an avid gamer. And now that I have that
same.
hindsight, I'm like, you know, I realize now it's a complete addiction because I'd be playing it like I would have this need to play it every
Yeah,
couple of
yeah.
days
It'd
for
be
like
like
8 hours, get it
that's
out
all
of my
you're thinking
system.
about.
Yeah, yeah. But now that I've gone off it for about like 2-3 months now, it's I don't even feel like I want to play it, and it's like everything else becomes easier because I don't like go after the easy thing. Like because writing music, I mean it gets easy once you start, but like just sitting down and open up Ableton sometimes can be a bit like oh, I can't be fucked.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a job sometimes. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie. Even you can love. Two things can be true. You can love something, but there's also days that you might not want to do that specific
Mm,
thing, and that's totally okay. There's the days I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to write it. I don't want to write music today. I don't want to sit in Ableton and do this, but I
mm,
force myself. Or there's times where I feel like that, and I'm like, okay, well, what else can I do that's productive? And sometimes it's music related, but it won't be necessarily production. I'm like, okay, like I could organize samples, or I could, sound design, or I could make content, social media stuff, or I could go to
mm.
the gym, like something else that's going to be productive if I don't really feel that way. But
Yeah,
I definitely the way I look at it for me, and I don't, it's me, but the writing is the work, the shows are the reward.
definitely,
That's how I look at it. So like
definitely.
I'm writing, I'm working, I'm at home, I'm grinding, frustrated sometimes, days where I work 4, 5, 6 hours, get nothing done working on some 8 bar loop of sound design and get super annoyed. And
Mm.
then all of a sudden a week later it clicks and I'm like, okay, now the idea is there and whatever. And then the song's done and I feel like, okay, I put that work in and then I go play a show and it's like, so it's like the work and then the reward and the payoff. That's how it
Yeah,
feels for me.
totally. And would you agree that that's because when you're playing shows, that's when you can be most impactful to people?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's when I connect most. I'm a
yeah.
pretty introverted person, so like
Mm.
getting out is that's my way of like that's my socializing. That's when I feel like my brand is on display and I get to
Totally,
really,
totally. I mean, it
interact.
validates the entire purpose of why you're doing what you're doing, right? Because
Yeah, yeah.
you can visually see people like reacting to what you've made. So you're like, yes, thumbs up.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
exactly. It's
yeah,
different. Sometimes I feel like, producers can be pretty secluded and like very isolated in
yeah.
their writing process and throughout their daily lives, depending on their social circle or where they live. And getting to play those shows, that's like the connection that you kind of long for,
Mm,
writing the music. You're like, you want that connection. And it's like, the numbers on social media can only go so far. Even if
mm,
it's like, oh, I got 1 million streams, that's great, but you're alone looking at that on a screen in your bedroom. That's way different than going and playing in front of 1,000 people and seeing the
100%.
reaction and then having people come up and hug you after and shake your hand and you know.
Yeah,
So
like I was saying, it literally validates the entire purpose behind what you're doing, like inside and out, like every single little bit about it. So I think that's why COVID was so bad for people, like on a mental health level, because
oh
like
yeah.
in your state, you had the exact same situation. You've worked your ass off, and then it was just leading to that point where you were going to finally get that reward and validation for what you'd been doing, and that got taken away from you, just like so many people. So
And then I
um,
had to turn around and write 14 more songs.
yeah, fuck, that's rough.
It's just like, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted more and more and more. And it was just tough because it's, I don't know, it was weird. It was like, it doesn't have the same effect for me to just stay home, write a song, put it out online and call it done. That's not,
Yeah,
it doesn't reach that full level of like, satisfaction. It's
100%.
got to be like the show. That's when I feel completed. Once the show's over, it's just like, oh man, it's like the cycle. It's like you start something, you stay at
Yeah,
home, you write it, you finish it, you play the show, and then the weight's lifted, and then you come home, and then the cycle starts again.
totally. No, couldn't have said it better myself. So do you have any productivity? Because you sound like a goal orientated person. Like, would you say that you're somebody that kind of lives by like productivity and whatnot to get you through doing a high volume of work?
I try. I try to be, I definitely have goals. But the productivity sometimes I definitely struggle with. I'm like a person that takes a long time to write music. Um, I can't pump out a song in like a day. I can't do that. It usually takes me, if I'm really, really grinding, if I have like a deadline, I could probably start an idea from start to finish 2 weeks. And that's pushing it for me. It's usually about 3 to 4. If I have, comfortable, I'm in my routine, and, maybe some 2 days or 3 days a week, I might not work on the song or whatever. But when it comes to completion, then I know it's done, and I'm like, okay, it's good. Whereas when I'm like really forced and pushed under a deadline, there's times where I've just had to, yeah, like it's okay, I guess it's passable,
Yeah.
and just had to finish the tune. But yeah, I definitely can struggle with productivity sometimes, and time management for sure. Time management's pretty tough, but
Yeah.
I think sticking to a routine and holding yourself accountable is the best way to do that. Setting alarms, setting aside time for production. Okay, I'm going to go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday, I'm just going to grind. I'm going to wake up at, whatever time. I'm a night owl, so, I wake up 12 p.m., 1 p.m., and I'm like, okay, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to get my coffee, have a little bite to eat, and then I'm going to sit in the chair from 3 p.m. till 10 p.m. No distractions, headphones on, and just grind, in those 2 days a week or 3 days a week. I got to try to keep myself on a schedule.
Yeah.
Because doing this full time, I've been doing it full time for 2 years. Time can definitely get away from you, especially when it's like you make your own schedule and you can do
Yeah.
what you
I
want
was
when you
just
want.
literally about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets away. Somebody 3-4 days in a row, all of a sudden people are like, hey, it's beautiful outside, come do this. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, because you make your own schedule. I'm free.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden a week goes by and you're like, oh shit, I didn't really work on music for a whole week. Like, you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, it's really hard to keep yourself accountable when you have so much autonomy of like when you need to be working or when you should work. It's like I kind of wish I had like some, I don't know, not even like a manager for specifically keeping me in check, but just like in a productivity world, but just like somebody over my shoulder like telling me to like do my thing. Because if you're making your own schedule, it's so difficult sometimes to just like show up every day and continuously do it.
Yeah, I've noticed I work better on deadlines too. So
Definitely.
if we could set up a deadline with a label wants to do a release, and I'm like, okay, perfect. Like, give me a release date.
Yeah.
Like, give me a date that's 2 or 3 months out from now, so I can write it in my calendar, and then I know like I'm working towards a goal where I'm like, okay, I'm actually working on this. This is going to get released, and it helps me be more productive. Whereas like when it's wide open, I'm kind of just like, well, I mean, I could collab with this person, or I could write this idea, or I could mess around and write a different genre, or so I definitely work better under deadlines. And I think setting deadlines for yourself as well, and being like, well, I really need to finish music, so I'm gonna start a song, today, and let's say I'm gonna pick a day on my calendar. I'm gonna say it's gonna be done by this day.
Yeah.
And forcing yourself and holding yourself accountable to that date to make sure that stuff gets finished.
Have you ever been given like some kind of semi unrealistic timeline, like deadline from a label about like, I don't know, let's say a remix or something where they're like, can you do this in 5 days? Have you ever had something like
that? It wasn't unrealistic, but it was unrealistic because I was in like a kind of a writer's block where I didn't really have a lot of things done. So I had gotten asked to do a single in a week. They're like, we need a single in a week, and then we run a 4-track EP 4 weeks later.
Oof.
That's
a lot of pressure.
5 songs in 5 weeks. That was a lot.
Yeah. Because even if you got to like all 4, it's like you could have just missed out by the 5th as well.
Yeah. Yep. So that was tough. That was.
So did you end up doing that, or?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That ended up being Zealot.
Okay.
Zealot that came out, and then the Crusade EP.
Yeah, right. Sick.
Last Man Standing and all that. Yeah, that was crazy to think that that's like the most streamed song of mine, and that came out of that, like
Just in that
that phase,
time warp.
that crunch time. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
wild to me. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah.
So
So, I have a question for you in terms of, if you have any advice for any newcomers that are now just getting into like taking this seriously.
okay.
Yeah, just any advice you would give a newcomer in terms of like, you know, starting out and making bass music specifically.
Marathon, not a race. That's very hard to accept. Especially when you see, I think we're all guilty of comparing ourselves to other people constantly. And I think realizing that every artist path is completely different. It's never linear. It's never just, point A to point B. It's always ups and downs. It's 5 steps forward, 8 steps back, 3 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. It's all over the place going up to, success and making this a full-time thing. But I think not getting frustrated and just enjoying the journey and the progress. I don't remember who it was, but there was a big artist I remember at a show, and he told me that he was like, once you get to that big level, every show is that big. And it's not, he wasn't like saying he took it for granted, but he was just like, you never really go back to those smaller club gigs or those more intimate gigs and play the smaller rooms and have that kind of like energy anymore. It's always just triple A to the nines production in the shows and thousands of people. So he was like, really enjoy that process of
The journey.
playing, the journey, playing whatever venue for the first time, your first big label release. I think celebrating all the little wins like helps keep you focused and helps keep you motivated for the journey, because it is a long journey. It doesn't just happen overnight, that's for sure.
Yeah, 100% right. Yeah, I think a lot of people get lost in the sauce and they, once they achieve that certain thing they always wanted, and they just become unhappy now because they've got it and they're like, what next?
But yeah, and then I think I think social media definitely, it's always like social media is us portraying the best version and like the best life for the internet, but it's really not like that. It's like even my social media, it's like, look at you, it's shows and releases and all this stuff, and I'm like, most of the time I am just in this room in this chair writing music at home and just going to like the local gym and like making dinner, you know what I mean? But it looks like this lavish, like I'm doing
100%.
all this crazy stuff, and that's what it is, I think, a lot of times for most producers. And
100%.
it's tough when every time you open social media, and I thought about this, and it's you scroll right, and it's like, oh, that person's releasing a song on this label. Oh, that person's playing this festival. They're playing this show. They're doing all this stuff. But you have to think, is for them, that person posting that might be the only thing they have going on. But when you start scrolling, that's all you see is everybody's W's. And it can be hard because you start to internalize it. Where you're like, well, I don't have
Comparison.
anything to post, or I don't have a label release, or I'm not playing a show. But it's like, that person, that might be their only thing they have going on. But when it's 100 of those things in a row from 100 different people, it makes you feel like you're missing out or you're not working hard enough. And there's
100%.
definitely burnout's a real thing, because it's like you're always in fear of not being relevant enough or not staying up to date, or you feel like you're behind 24/7. You're not doing enough. And that's tough too, mentally.
Yeah, well said. I think it's the being behind thing. I can definitely resonate with that because I had a couple of years off for like personal reasons. And so there was always this self-doubt being like, oh, will I ever get back to where I was? And, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like how things are now is like you could literally take a hiatus for as long as you want and then come back just as strong within 6 months. Like I've seen people who, they had like a completely different brand, rebranded, and then 6 months they've got management bookings from like Australia, Europe, America, and all sorted in terms of their team in like 6 months. So I think a lot of people need to stop self-doubting, oh, they haven't gotten to where they feel like they should be because they've been at it for so long. But it's like most of us have been doing it for like almost a decade. So
yeah. I mean, I've been doing it full-time 2 years. So I've been like messing around with production for 10, but probably taking it very seriously for about 6, 7, and then full-time for 2.
Yeah.
So I mean, you look at that 6 or 7, I mean, that was 5 years of grinding. And I mean, I was doing, when I was back in school, that was 7 days a week for 2 years. So like 4 days a week, I would do 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. classes, and I was driving 35-ish minutes. So I was driving like an hour plus a day, sitting in class for 5 hours, 4 days a week. So 20 hours a week with school. And that's Monday through Thursday. And then I worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I literally 7 days a week. And then all my free time when I wasn't doing homework or at my job, I was writing music. So that was like that for 2 years.
Yeah, right.
It was just constant grinding.
Yeah, right. Well, just to close out the podcast as well is what can people expect from you for next year? Well, just even the end of this year as well.
I have a release. I'm looking at my calendar right now. I have a release coming out Monday the 7th next week. So there's a release coming next week. It's not
Do we
yet,
do we
so
we can't say what label it is yet.
No, I don't want to know. I don't want to
Yeah.
spoil anything. I don't
Yeah.
think I'm supposed to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so next week I have another song that's unfinished that's finished that I want to put out. It's a 3-way collab with High Zombie and Frantic. So I definitely want to get that out. I'm going to try to do another EP release before the end of the year. More shows. So next week I'm playing in Kansas City, and then on Friday, and then I'm doing the Ill Sonic after party with Phase One in Montreal on Sunday. So that'll be
that'll be big.
And then
Yeah.
Lost Lands next month. I'm excited for that. So
What stage are you playing at Lost Lands?
Subsidia.
Oh, okay, they've got their own little thing then. Yeah, right.
Yeah, because I think there's 5 stages, 6 stages.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say what stage, but
No, yeah. No, it doesn't really. I don't think it really matters. Yeah.
yeah.
You're playing either way, so yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, playing either way.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, thanks for coming through in this podcast. It's been great. Really enjoyed getting to know you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.